Well, there's many stories to cover as we follow the aftermath of the Voice vote, but one story that we want to turn our attention to now is what gives with these institutions that came out in support of the Voice, especially the taxpayer-funded ones. I mean, it's one thing for a business to turn around and say, well, we support this particularly divisive political issue. Well, it's their money. But when a taxpayer-funded institution does the same thing, well, here at the Aussie Wire, we happen to think that that's a little bit different. Someone who's seen this from the very front seats is Professor Gigi Foster from the University of New South Wales. Thank you so much for coming on the Aussie Wire.
So much for having me, Topher.
Now, Professor, you saw as in front of your own eyes, as your own university, where you do work as a professor of economics, came out in support of the Voice. What are your thoughts on institutions, and in particular taxpayer-funded institutions, picking a side, any side, on what is a very hot political issue?
I really don't think it's appropriate, and I've gone on record saying so, not just in relation to The Voice, but even many, many years pre-COVID, there were signs that our universities, which are by and large taxpayer funded, although there are a few private universities in Australia, most of
Sure.
us are public. I went on record saying basically it was inappropriate that I saw the kind of political donations that were going on by universities, often to both sides of politics, actually. A lot of universities give money to both Labor and Liberal. And I just didn't understand what the point of this was. I mean, first of all, you're not a political actor. It's the people who are represented by politicians, supposedly, right? Not institutions. And secondly, why are we using this money to fund political causes? And certainly then to take one side so publicly as happened in The Voice, not just by UNSW, but by many other universities in Australia, I thought was very inappropriate. It's not the way that the public money is supposed to be spent. We are supposed to be spending money on universities to create welcoming, tolerant atmospheres in which all different kinds of perspectives and beliefs and views on political issues can be aired and discussed, and may the best ideas win. But that's not the kind of environment that's promoted when a university picks a side.
Well, of course, donating to both sides of politics is a classic move done by many large industries, whether it's pharmaceutical, banking, oil and energy, etc. They donate to both sides. They can't lose. It's just they just write off the costs. It's a tax deduction anyway. They write off the costs, and that way they've got friends no matter who wins. It certainly has a different feel about it when we see it being done with public money. But it also takes on a different feel when you've got an issue like The Voice, which is going to a referendum and is at risk of being rejected, and has now, of course, been rejected by the Australian public. Where does that leave someone like the University of New South Wales, or if you'd like to talk in more general terms, where does that leave institutions that came out publicly in support of the side that ended up coming second?
Well, it's kind of an egg on face moment, isn't it? I mean, I think there's probably a lot of people who right now are trying to distance themselves and backpedal quite substantially from having so openly and so publicly barracked for the wrong side, shall we say, just as has happened with the COVID policy disaster, by the way. There have been plenty of people who were directly involved in policy decisions during the COVID era who have backed away, fled the sinking ship, tried to scrub the actual realities, the facts on the ground that they did these things. I mean, you may have heard the new Kiwi prime minister saying that mandated vaccinations never happened in that country. You sort of have to think, are we in an Orwellian world, right? So we've never done that, right?
Yeah.
Come on,
Well,
we all know that happened, right? So there is going to be a very strong incentive to scrub and distance, and that's very embarrassing. But I think hopefully, the more thoughtful, reflective leaders of such institutions will recognize that this vote showed how badly out of touch the university sector is from the broad Australian population that it's supposed to serve. I hope that there are at least a few people who reflect on that.
just on the issue of the New Zealand Prime Minister, just to clarify, that was pre-election. That was the Prime Minister that took over directly from Jacinda Ardern. There's been an election since then and a change of Prime Minister. But it's funny, you talked about scrubbing. You talked about people trying to back away from this history. I did actually jump onto the University of New South Wales website, and I'm sorry, I know you work for them, and I'm kind of throwing them under the bus a little bit here, but this really grabbed my attention. This is a Google search. I simply searched for University of New South Wales supports Voice. It gave me two direct URLs that are on the University of New South Wales website themselves. The issue is when I clicked on either of those two URLs, what I actually got was the homepage, and the URL was gone. It's been simply removed. So what I did, I took it one step further. I then used the University of New South Wales own search function, which is there on their homepage, and I used that to search for the Voice to Parliament on their website directly. There you go. I got some results. Click on the top result. What happens? It takes me straight back to the homepage. This appears to me to be an institution that is trying to, it's in damage control here, and it's flailing around trying to figure out how to handle it now that it's backfired on them.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that speaks for itself. And I will say that I'm very grateful to the university for not having fired me during this time, or even once telling me that I should be quiet about my opinion. So there is, at least in terms of its behavior, something to celebrate.
Well, that is credit
But
to it.
this kind of Yeah, absolutely. But this kind of scrubbing and an attempt to overwrite what it stood for or said it stood for previously, first of all, it shows this Orwellian tendency to, oh, we can just state whatever we want to today, and that'll be what was always true. But secondly, I think if I had been part of the yes campaigning crowd at UNSW, I'd feel that was a bit of a slap in the face. I mean, how deep does their support go? Apparently not too deep. Right. So it just sort
Yeah.
of shows it up as a marketing exercise more than really anything about principles. And of course, it was the principles that, were the flags in which this position was wrapped.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we were told throughout the campaigning that the people who were not going to be voting yes were, variously racist or ignorant or stupid or, didn't care about Aboriginal people. I mean, that is slanderous. And now we see that, oh yeah, all that was really just marketing. And that's disappointing, obviously, from the perspective of somebody who, I guess my sort of general idea as a professional is I'm trying to search for truth. I'm trying to search for meaning and things that are solid that we can build institutions on, not just serve people associations that then disappear when they don't seem to be politically convenient anymore.
Well, it certainly doesn't speak well of their social media and website team. I'll say that much. To have come out and said and replaced those URLs and said, "Hey guys, obviously the voice result was not what we were hoping for, but we continue to work towards reconciliation." Well, they could have put it in so many other different ways. But instead, as you say, they've just simply walked away from it, dropped it like it's a scalding hot iron, and now they want nothing to do with it. It does not speak well of them at all. Well, Professor Gigi Foster, thank you so much for coming on the Aussie Wire. We're going to have you back on as soon as I get back from the UK, because you've got a very exciting new project launching actually at the University of New South Wales that I'll be attending. I'm looking forward to that. We'll talk about that in about a month when I get back. But for now, Professor Gigi Foster, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Topher.